Hi everyone, this is Rosie, and today we are going to learn how to sew a fold flat packing cube in any size. So let's get started. If you have been following me for a while, then you know that I am obsessed with bags that will fold flat when you're not using them. And this is my newest one. This is a packing cube. And you can make this bag in any size that you desire using a downloadable worksheet that I will provide for you. And you will find the link to the worksheet in the description below the video. Now this one here I set out to make 14 inches long by 10 inches wide and 3 inches deep. And right now I have it overstuffed with a bunch of fabric. These cubes have many uses. You can obviously use them for packing clothing when you're traveling. You can use them for storing fabric or materials that you need for a project that you might be working on. This one here is the one that we will be making in the video. It has a double zipper pull, a handle, and then this little pull tab right here to help with opening and closing. And you can use a variety of fabrics to make these, such as Cadura fabric, ripstop nylon, or 100% cotton quilting fabrics. My only recommendation is that you use a lightweight fabric. You don't want this to be a heavy bag. Now I have another one here that I want to show you. This one measures 12 inches long by 5 inches high by 6 inches wide. This would be a great size for carrying a pair of shoes in. I made this one and the first one that I showed you from Splash Fabric. If you're not familiar with Splash Fabrics, it is a cotton fabric that has been laminated with a coating that makes it water resistant, and it's great for carrying wet items. It is food safe and biodegradable, and you can iron it from the wrong side of the fabric. I have a little piece of the fabric right here. It is very pliable. This is what it looks like on the wrong side, and it's very nice to sew on. Now let's take a closer look at the bag itself. I have this one stuffed with some bubble wrap. And then it will fold flat when you're not using it. So you just would put your fingers in the sides like this and fold it flat. Now everybody always wants to know, what does the inside of the bag look like? And this bag, you're not going to find any raw seams. So I'm going to turn it inside out for you. Now on the ends, you're going to see these nice little triangles. Each corner has a triangle. And then here is the bottom of the bag. It's continuous fabric, no seams. And the bag is turned through an opening that we leave in the lining. So everything here is completely finished. Now let's go take a look at the worksheet that you will use to make the bag in any size you desire. Here is the worksheet that we will use to determine the size of the fabric pieces that we need to cut, and it is very easy to use. Here I have an illustration of the cube showing what each measurement represents. So along here we will have the length. And the length is going to be parallel to your zipper placement. In this direction we have the width, and in this direction we have the height. Then on the right side you need to decide what size cube you want to make. And I am going to make a cube that is 14 inches in length by 10 inches in width and 3 inches in height. Next, you will determine your seam allowance. I prefer to use the seam allowance of 1/2 of an inch, so I'm going to plug that in here. But I want you to note that the seam allowance for adding your zipper will be 1/4 of an inch, not 1/2 of an inch. Now that is based on either a number 4.5 or a number 5 zipper that has a zipper tape width of 1.25 inches. This is the box that we will use to do our actual calculations. And I have it oriented here as if this were your piece of fabric. This will be your cutting width, this will be your cutting height, and please note that the zipper is installed along the height of the fabric. So for the cutting height, I want to enter in my length, which is 14, and my height, which is 3, plus 2 times my seam allowance, so 1/2 inch times 2 is 1 inch. Then I will add up these numbers, and they give me a total of 18 inches. Then for my cutting width, I want to put in the width times 2, so my width is 10 times 2, that's 20. Next, I want to put in my height times 2, so my height is 3 times 2, that's 6, but then you're going to subtract 1/4 of an inch from that number. So 6 minus 0.25 is 5.75. So I add these numbers up, and they come to 25.75 inches. So this means that I need to cut out a piece of fabric that is 18 inches high and 25 3/4 inches wide. Now I can put these numbers into this section here, which is my cutting directions. So for my main fabric, I want to cut a piece of fabric out that is 18 inches high by 25 3/4 inches wide. And from my lining fabric, I need the same measurements, 18 inches high for my lining and 25.75 inches wide. Now here I've written in, cut 2 pieces from woven interfacing, which is optional. And the reason why it's optional is because you're not going to need an interfacing on every single fabric that you decide to use. So if I'm using cotton quilting fabric, then yes, I would want to interface each one of those pieces with a woven interfacing. So now let's take a look at the materials and notions that we will be using to make our cube. Here are the materials that I will be using for the project. I'm using splash fabric for both my exterior, which is here on the top, and for my lining. I did not interface these fabrics with any of the woven interfacing because it's not needed, but this is what the rear side of the fabric looks like. I'm using a number 4.5 YKK zipper with a double zipper pull. The width of my zipper tape is 1.25 inches. This zipper here is actually much longer than I need it to be, but I can cut it to size. For my handle, I'm using a piece of 1 inch wide seatbelt webbing. Mine is 10 inches long, but you can make your handle as long or as short as you want it to be. I also have a piece of grosgrain ribbon here that's 3/4 of an inch wide and about 5 inches long that I will use as a little zipper tab at the bottom of my zipper. You will also need a pair of scissors, a rotary cutter along with a rotary cutting mat and a ruler, a point turner, and a seam ripper, some wonder clips. Next, you will need a zipper foot for your sewing machine, and this is the one that I will be using on mine. You will also need an erasable marking tool. I have a friction pen here. If you use one of these, be very careful because while the marks will disappear with heat, they can come back with cold. For my thread, I am going to be using Gutermann Mara 70. This is a 40 weight thread, which is a little bit heavier. You would want to make sure that your machine can accommodate that thread. So let's get started sewing this together. I have already cut my fabric pieces to size, and I have my exterior piece here laying on my work surface so that my width is running in this direction and my height is running in this direction. Now remember that your zipper is going to be placed along the height of the fabric. The first thing that we need to do is fold this piece of fabric in half along the length. And it doesn't really matter at this point if you're folding it with wrong sides together or right sides together. You just want to make sure that you match up all of your edges. So I'm just going to place in a few clips just to hold everything in place. And then I'll just put a couple of clips down the side. And then you want to smooth everything out so that you have this nice fold down here. And where the fold is, you're going to take your scissors and just make a small clip on the corner where the fold is. You don't want that clip to be too deep. And then you can go ahead and take your lining fabric and do the same exact thing. So here's my piece of lining fabric. And again, you want to have the width running in this direction and the height running in this direction. You'll fold it in half, clip the edges together, and then cut those little notches down by the fold. Now I'm going to bring back my exterior piece. And here's my exterior piece once again, with the width running in this direction and the height in this direction. I know I keep stressing that, but it's really important that your zipper goes along the height. If you were to put it along the width, you would get a different size bag than what you started out to make. So here I have my zipper. We're going to place the zipper right sides together with the exterior fabric right along this length here. Now my zipper was too long, so I cut it to size, but I left myself a few inches on each end. And you just want to clip that zipper to your fabric, making sure that the edge of the zipper is in line with the edge of your fabric. Then we're going to sew the zipper in place with a 1/8 inch seam. Now I like to sew my zipper in on the exterior side first. Then after we have that sewn in place, we'll take our lining fabric and clip that to the wrong side of the zipper and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. Now if you prefer to sew the lining and the exterior on at the same time, that's perfectly fine, but I prefer to do it this way. I'm sewing on a Juki TL2010Q with a stitch length of 3.0. We're just going to stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of that zipper. Try and keep your zipper edge even with the edge of your fabric. And I will back stitch at both ends. Now I can clip my lining to the wrong side of the zipper. Your lining and your exterior fabrics will be right sides together with that zipper sandwiched in between. And once again, just make sure that all of your edges are even, both the side edges and the edge along the top of the zipper. And now we will sew everything together with a 1/4 inch seam. I'm sewing with a stitch length of 3.0 and my seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch, and I will backstitch at both ends. I'm going to place the lining and exterior fabrics wrong sides together. Just like this. And then I want to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the zipper on the exterior side. Now you cannot iron on the right side of this splash fabric. So you're just going to have to finger press everything in place. Try and get a nice sharp fold there. And then we can go over to the sewing machine and start stitching. I'm top stitching 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the zipper with a stitch length of 3.5, and I will back stitch at both ends. Just try and pull that fabric away from the zipper on both the exterior and the lining side as you sew along. Next, we want to sew the exterior fabric to the opposite side of the zipper. So I have the opposite side of my exterior here. I'm going to line it up with my zipper. And once again, make sure those edges are even. And go ahead and clip it in place. And we will once again sew with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. I'm sewing 1/8 of an inch away from the edge with a stitch length of 3.0 and do back stitch. I finished sewing the exterior to the right side of the zipper, and we're going to flip it over so that the lining side is facing up, and we are ready to sew our lining once again to the wrong side of the zipper. But we're going to do it a little bit differently this time because we're going to leave an opening in the middle of the lining here to turn the bag right side out. I like to leave myself a few inches. So you can decide whatever amount would be comfortable for you to turn the bag. Now I'm going to line everything up here and clip it in place. So what will happen is we're going to sew the lining to the wrong side of the zipper with a seam allowance of 1/4 of an inch, but we're going to stop right here and backstitch. Then we're going to leave this section open, and then we'll start stitching again here. At this point, we will begin with a backstitch and then stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance off to the edge. Again, you can decide how large you want this opening to be. I like to make it large enough for my hand to fit through. I'm sewing with a stitch length of 3.0, 1/4 inch away from the edge. And I am going to backstitch. And here's the spot where I've left that opening, so I'm just going to stitch right up to my mark and backstitch. Then we can skip over the opening. And backstitch here again, and then we'll stitch off to the edge. And backstitch. I have the lining sewn in place, and here is my opening. And now I want to place the wrong side of the exterior and the lining together. So I'm just going to grab my exterior here and just pull it over the lining. So now you should have your lining and your exterior wrong sides together. Alright, now we're going to open up this zipper all the way, but you want to make sure that your zipper ends are secure if you've cut your zipper to size. So it's already secure on this end with the stops that were put in by the manufacturer, and I did stitch this end so that I don't have to worry about my zipper pull coming off. So I'm just going to open it up, and now we're going to top stitch the same way that we did for the opposite side, this side here, but this time we're going to stop our top stitching when we get to the opening. So here's my opening right here. So I'm just going to put a clip in there just to make sure that I don't sew past that opening. Here's the opening on the opposite side. I will put a clip right there. Then once again, you're going to want to finger press that fabric in place. This section is going to stay unstitched, and then finger press on the other side. I'm top stitching 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the zipper with a stitch length of 3.5, and I will back stitch at the beginning. Now when I get to where that clip is, that is where the opening is that I left in the lining. So I'm going to stop just short of that clip and backstitch. Then I can move to the other side. So I'm going across that opening there to the other side. And I will backstitch here again. Just make sure that that lining is pulled away from the zipper. And backstitch. So my top stitching is completed on each side of that opening. and the opening in the lining is still there. Now I'm going to close my zipper back up all the way. And now I want to take my exterior and bring it so that the wrong side of the exterior is facing out. Just like this. So I have my exterior on this side, my lining on this side. And now this is where those notches that we cut out at the beginning are going to come into play. I'm going to take the exterior and we want to fold it over just like this so that the notch is going to be lined up with the middle of the zipper. So here's my notch right here, and here's the middle of the zipper. And I'm going to put a clip on each side. Try and keep your edges even. And then we'll do the same thing on this side. Here's the notch in my exterior. I'm going to bring it right over to the middle of the zipper, but before you do that, you need to make sure that your zipper pulls are towards the center of the cube. So line up the notch and put a clip on each side. Then you're going to flip this over so that your lining side is facing up. And do the same thing. We're going to fold this so that that notch is lined up with the center of the zipper. So here's my notch right here, and lining that up with the center of the zipper and clip in place. And do the same thing on the opposite side. So now we have a fold in the lining here and a fold in the exterior on the opposite side. Those folds should be coming together, so they should be even with each other, and they should be even with each other on both sides. So you just want to smooth everything out, make sure that everything looks good, looks like where it should be. Once you're sure that the folds in the lining and the exterior are even with each other, press a nice crease where the folds are. With the splash fabric, I don't like to use too much heat, but you can iron this fabric from the wrong side. Just enough to form a crease. Now, on our exterior side, we're going to mark a line up from the fold. And the amount that you mark is going to be 1/2 the height of your bag. So the height of my bag is 3 inches. I'm going to mark a line that is 1.5 inches up from the fold. So I'm just going to place my ruler down with my mark on the fold, and I will draw a line straight across. Now I'm actually using a permanent pen here, only for demonstration purposes, because I don't want this line to erase with the friction pen because I need you to see what I'm doing. Then we will flip this around and do the same thing on this side. That's all we need to do for the exterior side right now. Going to flip it over to the lining side. And on the lining side, we want to mark a line 1.5 inch up from the fold, but we're going to do it on both sides. We're going to do it on this side, and then we will do it again on this side. So again, 1/2 of my height is 1.5 inches. Now I'm just going to flip it this way so that I can mark the line on the opposite side. Then I'll move to the other side of my lining and make the same marks. After marking, we want to fold back on the lines that we drew. And I'm going to start with the exterior side first. So here's the line on my exterior. Going to fold back that line and iron a crease in the fold. Do the same thing on the opposite side of the exterior. Here's my line. And iron a crease in the fold. Now, for the lining, first thing that we want to do is fold on this line right here, and we will iron a crease in that fold. Then you want to find that second line that you drew, and you're going to iron a crease in that fold as well. So now we've just ironed 2 creases into the lining. One is on this side, one is on this side. You want to bring them together so that those creases are lining up, and press. Then you'll go ahead and iron the creases on the opposite side of the lining in the same way. So fold on that line. And iron. And flip it over, or actually you don't have to flip it over. And I will iron down on that second line. Then you're going to bring those two creases together that you just created. Make sure that they're even with each other and iron once again. And now that you have everything pressed into place, I'm going to put the exterior side down on my board. We're going to open up this fold right here in the lining, and then you're going to take the exterior where you created that fold, and we're going to sandwich that in between the two folds of the lining. You want the fold of the lining to be right where the fold of the exterior is. I'm just going to press mine in a little better. It should be nesting in there very nicely. This fold right here on the exterior should be right where that crease is. Then we'll take this fold, bring it over the exterior. And then you're going to put a bunch of clips in along the length, just to hold everything together. Then we'll do the same exact thing on this side. You're going to open up the two folds in the lining. Then you're going to take your exterior side and fold that into the folds of the lining, making sure that everything is lined up. You'll fold this side of the lining back over the exterior and clip in place. The last thing that we need to do before we can sew up our side seams is to install the little zipper tab right here at the end of the zipper plus our handle. We need to do that from the exterior side, from the right side of the zipper. So I'm just going to remove these clips over here for a minute. I'm going to take my grosgrain ribbon, fold it in half, just like this, and I'm going to place it right on top of the zipper. So you just want to center it up with that zipper, and then we can go ahead and clip everything back together again. I'll just put in a few more clips. And then on the opposite side you can install your handle. Placement of the handle is just about wherever you want it to be. So I'm going to open this up, and I think I'm Just going to place it about an inch or two, or maybe halfway in between the end of the zipper and the end of the side there. And then you're going to bring the other end around. You want to make sure that you don't twist that handle, and then clip it in place. And then you can go ahead and clip all the layers together once again. And now we are ready to sew up the side seams. I'm sewing with a stitch length 3.0 and a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I will be sewing over the zipper teeth. These are nylon zipper teeth, and my machine is able to handle that just fine. You may want to see if yours can as well. But you never, ever, ever want to sew over metal zipper teeth with your machine. And you do want to back stitch at each end. And right here, where I have that little zipper tab, I'm going to back stitch over that area a couple of times just to give it some strength. Now I'm going to flip over to the other side where the handle is, and I did actually change my handle placement. I moved it a little bit closer to the zipper. So now I'm going to stitch this side in exactly the same way. And this is where my handle is, right here, so I'm going to do the same thing, just back stitch over that. Just makes it a little bit stronger. And here's my handle right here again. And back stitch at the end. Once you're sure that everything looks right, you can go ahead and trim the ends of the zipper even with the edge of that seam there. And do that on both ends. And then I also like to just trim up the corners. Be careful not to cut into your stitching. And then we can go ahead and remove all the clips. And you're going to open this up, and you want to look for where we left that opening in the zipper. It's going to be on one side, and you can see it's right here. So then you're just going to reach in and turn everything right side out. Go ahead and open up the zipper at this point. just smooth everything out into the corners. You can use your point turner to get into these corners here if you like. And just keep working at it until you've got everything nicely turned out. Here's the bag turned right side out, and we are looking at the lining side. Now right here we have the opening in the lining. That is going to get folded under and top stitched from the exterior side, so you're not going to see that opening there. If you want to see the ends of it, each corner has this little diamond shape, and here is the bottom of the bag. No seams, just continuous fabric. Now we're going to turn it so that the exterior side is facing out. If I grab my ends here and pull, it's going to lay flat just like this. And you can do that on the other side too. Pull your ends straight out. And now it's going to lay completely flat. Now to close this up, we're just going to fold under the lining, and we're going to clip it in place with a few clips, and then we're going to top stitch straight across. So we just want to start where we finished our top stitching earlier, then we will top stitch across, and then end when we get to the top stitching on the opposite side. So I'm just going to prepare this now, and then we'll go over to the sewing machine and finish up. I'm ready to top stitch that opening closed, and here is what it will look like from the lining side. I'm ready to finish top stitching that opening closed, and I'm just going to start with a back stitch with a stitch length of 3.0, and you want to maintain that same 1/8 of an inch distance. Here is my completed packing cube, which I have overstuffed with fabric. I set out to make this 14 inches long by 10 inches wide by 3 inches high. So let's see how we did here. I have my ruler. So I have 12 inches here, plus another 2, so it's about 14 inches in length. And then for the height, I have 3 inches, and then for the width, I have 10 inches. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this video tutorial. If you decide to make one of these cubes, I'd love to see them. You can post pictures of them in my Facebook group, which is Rosie and David Patterns. I would also love for you to visit my Etsy shop, which is Rosie and David US. And I want to give a sincere thanks to everyone who has supported me by liking my videos and subscribing to my channel. If you're not already a subscriber, I would love to have you as one. So please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.